There is a silence at the dawn of our species, a profound quiet, undisturbed by the noise of nations or the clamor of industry. It is a silence that stretches back through millennia, across ages of existence that we can only glimpse through the faintest of echoes. To understand who we are, we must first travel back into that quiet. We must journey to a time before the world we know ever existed. Before history had a name, before the very concept of a past, recorded in script or chiseled in stone, had ever been conceived. This was an era lived entirely in the present, where memory was not a library of texts, but a chain of stories, passed from one generation to the next through the simple, sacred act of speech. Knowledge was a living thing, carried in the minds of elders and the lessons of the hunt. There were no chronicles, no calendars to mark the passing of years, only the turning of the seasons and the cycles of the moon. The story of humanity was not written down. It was breathed into the cold night air around a flickering fire. Before the first king wore a crown, before the idea of a ruler, a throne, or an empire had ever taken root. In this ancient world, there were no palaces built to house gods among men, no armies marching under a single banner. Power was not held in a scepter or inherited by bloodline. It was found in wisdom, in skill, in the ability to find water, to track game, to predict the coming of a storm. Leadership was a responsibility, not a right, earned daily through trust and shared struggle. Humanity was not divided by borders or bound by laws of state. It was a scattered collection of families, of small, resilient bands, united only by the common challenge of survival. Before the first city rose from the earth, before a single foundation was laid for a permanent home, the landscape was an unbroken wilderness, untamed by agriculture, unscarred by roads. There were no sprawling fields of grain, no walls to keep the wild out and civilization in. Life was a journey, a constant migration in rhythm with the great herds and the shifting climate. Shelter was not a place you owned, but something you carried with you or found in the hollow of the earth. A cave, a rock overhang, a temporary structure of hide and bone designed to be abandoned when the seasons turned. The entire planet was a frontier, and humanity was a wanderer upon its face. In this forgotten epoch, humanity lived in a world ruled by ice. This was the Pleistocene, an age when the planet's climate dipped into a long, formidable winter. Glaciers, miles thick, held dominion over entire continents, grinding mountains to dust and locking away immense volumes of the world's oceans. The very geography of the planet was different, a world of land bridges, lowered seas, and coastlines that no longer exist. This was not a gentle world. It was a realm of brutal cold, of biting winds, and of long, unforgiving nights. Yet, against this backdrop of immense geological power, our ancestors not only endured, they adapted, they innovated, and they thrived. Their resilience is the foundation upon which our entire story is built. Every city, every nation, every discovery we have ever made began here, in the crucible of this frozen age. To trace the path of our journey, we must begin where they did, in the shadow of the great ice sheets. This is where our story begins. Welcome to the timeline. Let us journey back in time, not merely centuries, but millennia. We travel to an epoch when the very pulse of the planet was slower, colder. We arrive approximately 20,000 years ago at the peak of the last great ice age, a period scientists call the last glacial maximum. This is a world that would be utterly unrecognizable to us now, a planet draped in a mantle of ice. Continent-spanning glaciers, some kilometers thick, have ground their way across the northern hemisphere, their immense weight pressing down on the land itself. So much of Earth's water is locked away in these colossal ice sheets that the global climate is profoundly altered. The air is thinner, drier, and colder than at any other point in human history. Weather patterns are extreme, dominated by relentless, scouring winds that carry dust and ice particles for thousands of kilometers, shaping the barren landscapes below. From these frozen highlands, gravity pulls super-chilled, dense air downwards in ferocious katabatic winds, which can reach hurricane force as they pour onto the plains. This is a world sculpted by forces of an almost unimaginable scale. The vast quantities of water frozen into the glaciers have caused a dramatic drop in the planet's oceans. Sea levels were much lower than today, by as much as 120 meters. This exposed enormous tracts of the continental shelf, creating new lands now hidden beneath the waves. Land bridges connected continents, opening migration routes for animals and for our own ancestors. Yet, for all its harshness, this formidable frozen wilderness was not empty. It was a functioning ecosystem, and against all odds, it was home. Around campfires, people shared knowledge, stories, and survival skills that would eventually shape civilization. Even after the hunt ended, danger never disappeared. Earth's climate gradually warmed, creating new opportunities and new challenges for early humans. For 100,000 years, the story of humanity was written in ice and stone. It was a narrative of endurance, etched across frozen continents by small, wandering bands who faced down a world of unimaginable severity. They learned the rhythms of the cold, the language of the beasts, and the secrets of survival held within a sharpened flint or a flickering flame. They were masters of a world that demanded everything and offered just enough in return. To live was to move, to follow the great herds across endless tundra, to know the land not as a possession, but as a powerful, unforgiving partner. Every sunrise was a victory. Every successful hunt, a testament to their ingenuity and unbreakable social bonds. They had not merely endured, they had thrived, spreading across the globe, adapting to every challenge the Great Ice Age could throw at them. They had survived one of the harshest environments our species would ever face, proving that even in the deepest freeze, the human spirit could burn bright. But as the world's great glaciers finally surrendered, their icy grip releasing the land, the stage was being set for a revolution unlike any other. The long winter was ending. The air itself was changing, growing warmer, wetter. Rivers, once frozen solid, now carved new paths through the awakening earth, carrying meltwater to plains that exploded with life. Forests of birch and pine marched northward, reclaiming territory that had been sterile ice for millennia. This new world, the world of the Holocene, was a garden of possibility. The giant beasts of the Ice Age, the mammoths and the woolly rhinos, were fading into memory, replaced by smaller, more numerous creatures. Deer, boar, and wild cattle filled the woodlands. Vast flocks of birds returned to newly formed wetlands. The sheer abundance was staggering. For the first time in human existence, the relentless pressure of survival began to ease. The constant, desperate search for calories gave way to a world of plenty. And in this newfound stability, a new idea, a dangerous and seductive idea, began to take root in the human mind. What if we didn't have to follow the herds? What if the food could be made to stay with us? But the greatest transformation in human history was only beginning. Soon, people would stop following the land and begin changing it forever. This was not a conscious decision made by a single group, but a slow, creeping evolution of behavior happening in pockets across the globe. It began with observation, noticing that seeds dropped by accident would sprout the following season, realizing that certain animals, if captured young, could be tamed and kept close. These were small acts, born of convenience, not grand design. Yet they represented a fundamental shift in our species' relationship with the natural world. We were transitioning from being participants within the ecosystem to becoming its architects. From accepting what nature provided to demanding what we desired, this was the dawn of agriculture, a pact made with the earth that would give us unprecedented food security, allowing our populations to explode. It would give us villages, then towns, and then the first great cities. It would give us kings, priests, soldiers, and scribes. It would give us civilization itself. But this pact would also have a cost. It would chain us to the soil, to the seasons, and to the harvest. It would create hierarchies, inequality, and new forms of conflict. The wandering freedom of the hunter would be traded for the toil of the farmer. In our next chapter, we will witness the birth of this new world. We will see the first seeds deliberately planted, the first animals brought into the fold, and the first permanent settlements rise from the mud and timber. The agricultural revolution.